What is up, people? We're halfway through the quarterfinals and we have seen two decent games, I would say. The first game obviously being France and Morocco. No real surprises, to be honest, and the scariest thing is that France never really got out of third gear, I would say, maybe even second. So from what started off with an Mbappe penalty being given, no issues there. A very, very poor penalty, very casual, easy enough save for the keeper, guessed the right way. Followed by a worldie of a beautiful curve shot by Mbappe, showing why he is Real Madrid's main man, along with Vini Jr., of course, Brazil. And what we saw was, if that was just 6 inches or so the other side, it would have pinged off the post and probably out of play. But following that, we saw Dembele, a bit of a flappy-handed goalkeeper. His sight was a bit blinded. But then what I found really interesting, aside from the result, is the fact that they tried something different. Didier Deschamps then threw on Mateta, proven Premier League striker, absolute handful in the box, massive, massive human being. And they did try to ping a few balls in, just straight at him to give him a different option. So what that told me is, if they are getting ready to potentially chase a game, and now we know it will be Spain, but to chase a game in the dying embers of a match, throw him on, give yourself something route one. Premier League players as well, used to that all day. Get yourself in the box, make yourself a nuisance, make yourself big. So one thing that came across there that I thought was very interesting is just how they have that option off the bench. And actually, if you think about it, a lot of other teams don't really have that big old target man. Belgium, we saw, had it with Lukaku, but I don't think he's fully fit. It doesn't seem so. But even then, you can see that optionality off the bench. We always speak about Doué, we speak about Mbappe, we speak about Dembele, we speak about the likes of Cherki even, right? Who can come off the bench. What to speak of Barcola and all these other guys with absolute sheer pace. But what we don't speak about is that target man. And that target man in Mateta could be proved to be very, very crucial and different and offer something that really no other team can. Because even if you think about England, you think about Argentina, they don't have that old school number 9 who can just make themselves a nuisance and pop up with either a headed assist or even better, a headed goal in the dying moments of a game. So we didn't really learn anything too new. And I actually don't think that was even France's biggest challenge, but they've shown they can beat a mid and low block. They show that they can get very rough with the likes of Paraguay and come through. And now I think, and we'll do a different preview video on the semi-finals, but it will be very, very interesting. I think it's a great matchup to see France and Spain next. And on to tonight's game, the game we've just all seen, Belgium and Spain. So firstly, well done to Belgium. I don't think anyone expected them to get this far. You look at their aging squad, right, with Lukaku well into his 30s now. I had to click on Alex Witzel's name because I was like, he's on the bench. I assume he's there for experience. 37 years old, right? So 4, 8, 12, he's probably been there for like at least 3 World Cups, you would think now. But it just shows that that golden generation that Martinez managed didn't actually amount to anything of significance, unfortunately, despite being in the FIFA top rankings as number 1 for 4 to 5 consecutive years, which is crazy to think. But they showed a lot of heart, they showed a lot of determination. The first goal, where Pedro Porro runs in behind Jeremy Doku, and you would think 2 Prem players would understand each other's game well enough. At least Doku should have tracked back, but just that slight switch off allowed the ball to come into the box. Ping off Courtois, of all players, the world's best keeper, we're told, and I think this will be his last World Cup, unfortunately, but pinged off him and then sent home. But Belgium did well to respond near instantly, or well before half-time at least. And then in the second half, I thought we were kind of sleepwalking into extra time, and maybe some of the changes would dictate that. But Moreno had a great game, and he should start over Fabian Ruiz, in my view, for the semi-final. Again, we'll get into more detail with the semi-final video. But what I wanted to talk about was just how unfortunate Sané Lamons is, right? And Kourbasi, what a great shot from outside the box. And like all good players do, they're there to pick up the pieces and fire home, expecting the keeper to make an error or to not fully clear the ball. It's interesting, I remember an interview with Israel Adesanya speaking about when he was fighting in the UFC, his idol, Anderson Silva, and he was saying, I'm not hitting him where he is, I'm aiming to hit him where he's going to be. And I think that's such a great description as well of poaching goal scorers, right? Where they're number 10s, wingers, whatever, centre forwards, of course, strikers, is that when there is an opportunity, shoot your shot, quite literally, Kurbasi, right? Have a go, and you never know what will happen with the keeper. And it was unfortunate that Courtois, I mentioned, is most likely his last World Cup. Very, very unfortunate, in tears, coming off the pitch. You know, you can imagine that these are the same players that grow up like kids, like all of us, dreaming of winning a World Cup, and you have that glimmer of hope. You think, okay, we got through the groups. Okay, we got through the last 32. Okay, cool. Maybe, just maybe, I might be able to lift a World Cup before retirement, international retirement at least. And unfortunately, goes off in tears. And I think what is even more bitter is the fact that you think Baby Courtois, as his nickname is, Sané Le Mans, has had a fantastic season with United, who actually did make a similar error during the Premier League season for United, spilled that shot and fired home, and the rest is history. So unfortunate. I think two better games than I expected to watch, to be honest. I thought it would be France just completely running through a tough Morocco team, and I thought Spain would run through Belgium, right? Eventually. I thought they would eventually get through. But what I'm happy about is that we've seen two quality games, and now we've got tomorrow England and of course Norway, which I'll be watching. I'm not sure I'll catch the other game live because I don't fancy being up at 2 in the morning. Having said that, you do have the return of Conor McGregor probably around 4 a.m. So if there's ever a night for an all-nighter, this would be it, right? And just to round off where we're up to with transfer news, I thought it would be quite interesting, not just because I'm wearing my Brazil top that I bought in my teens and it's been in my closet ever since and it comes out in the summer, but because I think it is very interesting about how these Brazilian players are impacting United's transfer plans. So you might have to bear with me here. So I'm going to count on my fingers, right? So Manchester United wanted 3 midfielders, right? Option 1, option 2, option 3. Obviously, option 1 being the flagship signing, being Tchouaméni. I think it was a bit of a Frankie de Jong protracted transfer mess, to be honest. At least they didn't get strong along all transfer window or across multiple transfer windows, but we're led to believe through the journalists that he has been speaking to United. United have been speaking to him since April and the signs are positive. Turned out to be a contract negotiation. We saw the same with many a player, to be honest, a bunch of Bayern Munich players over the years, and notably Sergio Ramos. Of course, for a few summers, even at one point, he was going to come on a free at the age of 35 to Manchester United. So unfortunately, that didn't work out for United, but this is my point, right? We've got number 1, Tchouaméni didn't work out. So if you assume Tchouaméni was going to work out, Ederson was going to be your 3rd, and number 2 was going to be Matthias Fernandes. So I think they committed £40 million at the beginning of the window to say, this is always our number 3, so no problem. And then I think they realised, oh crap, number 2 is going to cost us 85 million. So now we don't have 40 million because we've overspent here. And now I think they're realising, well, we had 80 odd million for Tchouaméni, but now we're really going to have to buy someone and essentially probably pay a bigger fee than what we would have paid for Tchouaméni, maybe even break the bank for someone. Who that might be, no idea. But I think what it's done is, you hear the term cut your cloth accordingly, right? You have X amount of budget, you have X amount of time to spend it in. It's like saying, right, if you have a takeout on a Friday and you've got food at home, you eat on the weekend, and maybe you do skip that dessert on a Sunday because, hey, you don't have the budget for it because you get paid on a Monday, right? For example. So I think there's similar what happened with United. They went, okay, we're going to go get Tchouaméni, we're going to get Matthias Fernandes, and we're going to spend 130 million on both. So we can afford that 40 million because our budget is 160 million. But what we found is that because Ederson was now not going to be number 3, but maybe number 2 choice, maybe he's not good enough. And this is where Santos comes into play, because now you're thinking, for your number 3 midfielder, you've paid £50 million for Santos, not 40 million. So now you still need to fill options 1 and 2, right? So you don't have your flagship signing and you don't have your partner for your flagship signing who can be interchanged with Kobbie Mainoo. So 160 million budget now for 2 players becomes 110 million. So for 60 and 50 million, are you really going to get options 1 and 2? Probably not. So I think it's genuine that he has unfortunately had a meniscus injury. And I think that that was rushed back. And you could see that at the end of the season, Atalanta weren't really playing him or putting in match day squads in anticipation of a move. And also to be respectful for him of the World Cup if there was not a great deal to play for. And obviously, if your player said he's leaving, the last thing you want to do, if you're agreeing to him leaving and not leaving on a free next year for free, is to wrap him up in cotton wool and let him do his thing. But I think that is, in summary, what's happened. United thought Tchouaméni, they thought Mateus Fernandes, and then they thought the third player would be Ederson. And now when Ederson gets bumped up the priority list, you're thinking, don't really want him to be there anymore. And if I've now said option 3 is Santos, and he's cost 10 more million than what I initially budgeted, I've only got 110 odd million or maybe even 100 million to cover 2 positions, and one of those needs to be a flagship signing. So that's what I think, and it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the transfer window plays out. I think as soon as the World Cup's over, which will be before we know it, there's only about 3 or 4 weeks until the season starts. And not only is there only 3 or 4 weeks until the season starts, what I mean is when everyone's back in training. There's some non-World Cup players already at Carrington at Manchester United training, the likes of Luke Shaw, the likes of Harry Maguire. But you know that Carrick will want those people bedded in, and wherever pre-season is, you'll want them traveling, not only just for actually football, but Copa Madrid, right? You saw the videos of Cunha, how well integrated on the pre-season tour in America last year he was, because we got that done early doors. And then you see the difference getting Sesko in later and having a slower start. So it was because obviously Amarin's style of play was so uniquely bad at the end of it, right? In English football, the worst ever Manchester United manager in the modern era, unfortunately. But what you can see is that Carrick will want a style of play. He'll want his players as a close-knit unit. And you can also see that with Ferguson, whenever you hear about Ferguson, he was always saying, take that person from this country if they're joining. And if there's someone, so South Americans being a typical example, hey, invite them to your kid's birthday, take them out for dinner, do this, do that, do this, do that. So whoever it is who's now going to come in as the flagship midfielder, if anybody, that deal needs to be done quickly. And it can't be Alex Scott. It cannot be Alex Scott. So I think we're going to see a bit of reaction with Ineos, and I think that's probably why the stadium news dropped when it did. But let's see what happens. Thanks for watching.